To our continuing coverage of the fighting that's broken out in the Middle East. Now, the latest news coming in, the IDF has released footage that it says shows Iranian fighter jets destroyed while preparing for takeoff at an airbase in Tabriz in Iran. This is, of course, coming in from the side of Israel, with the IDF releasing this particular footage. Let's take a close look at this particular footage. And, of course, you can see, of course, how that fighter jet is engulfed in flames even before it takes off. This is what Israel says is the Tabriz airbase there in Iran. Let's quickly try and analyze this footage that's coming up before us. With us here in the studio is Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastav. Anand Ragnathan, author, is with us. We have Captain Alok Bansal, Director of India Foundation. Adam Scott Bilos is CEO of Israel Innovation Fund. And Dr. Atikur Rahman, Professor of International Relations, also with us. Air Vice Marshal Srivastav, what do we make of this footage? Can you take us through what kind of a fighter jet this is and how has this been achieved? Is it a drone strike? Is it a missile strike? What exactly are we looking at?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Iranian Air Force is completely under the control of Israeli and US forces. So this is one of the missiles you can launch from the aircraft, and this seems to be some F-series, F-4 or some kind of aircraft which they have. And I don't know whether it was going for takeoff or it was just stand still over there, but it can be done. But in the fog of war, whatever pictures to see and whatever claims are made, you take it with a pinch of salt. But as far as the end result is concerned, there is no Air Force presence or air power presence within the Iranian establishment. Iranian Air Force has no match for the kind of Israeli and US forces are there. They are in large and plenty, very potent. So having one aircraft being flown and goes for some sortie, what sortie it can do? It will be just taken off by any of the missiles, any of the air defense systems. So I don't think it can do any military kind of damage. This could be one of those moments where you show your bravado that I can still take off, or I can still do this, I can still do that. But the way war is being conducted by Iran as of now, it doesn't seem to be conducted in the military fashion. It's not a war, it's a war of desperation. Local commanders are there, they don't know what to do, and they're doing whatever they feel like, whatever weapons they have. They only have missiles under their control or drones under their control. So it's a very minimalistic kind of attack which can be mounted, and it will be something like a terrorist attack. You see what has been the main power of Iran. They have been working through axis of resistance, 3H and Iraqi militia. The Hezbollah, Houthi, Hamas, they were the main proxy powers through which they were spreading or influencing the outcome of any political decision. Those are already contained to a very large degree. And in June 25, when the attacks were made on Iran, the nuclear capability was also limited. Of course, came out, it has not been fully decimated, but it was, a limitation exercise was done. So with all that background, at the moment, Iran was very vulnerable. What is being tried out here, the game is that if you can somehow bring in pro-West government here, so that the region becomes stable.
That's what US would want, but is that something that's going to actually happen on ground? That's a very important question.
So
let me bring this across to Colonel. Yeah, let me bring in Colonel Dr. Rafael George Buchnik-Chen, who's a senior researcher at the Begin Sadat Institute for Strategic Studies at the Bar-Ilan University. Let me bring you in on that. You know, while US would want a pro-US regime for obvious reasons to come up there in Tehran, what's the likelihood that that will actually happen? Will the new leader be from the clergy, for instance, is a question that several of our panelists have been asking.
Well, good afternoon. Well, in fact, there is still a kind of mystery with respect to the replacement of the current regime. Suppose the regime will be overthrown. What I can say is that the United States and Israel would like to see the people engaging in a new wave of protest in order to change the atmosphere in Iran and to change the characteristic of the regime, namely no more clerical a fanatic regime, but a pro-West regime aiming for reforms and for adaptation to the modern times. Well, actually, we are in the midst of an alert here, and the missiles are detonating not so far from here. Anyway, it's fine. Apparently, what Netanyahu just said on this morning to the Iranian people is go out and change the regime, while we, the US and Israel, are coming from outside to support you. And this is what the Iranian people was expecting.
Right.
Of course, I'm not referring to the pro-regime people who are still appearing as supporter of the existing regime. But for the youngsters, the students, and other, open-minded people who would like to change the regime from bottom to up.
Yeah. The question that I want to ask you is this, because as somebody who studies this area very closely, the insistence of the existing regime that everything is fine, that they're much better prepared for the fighting, that there is a plan for succession, so on and so forth. How much of this is bluster, and how much of this will they actually be able to achieve?
Well, I think that the current regime is counting his days. The countdown is already there, because
very important.
There is no chance for the remaining leadership, which is the fallback, the fallback team, which are not so, so capable as the first league team, which was eliminated. So apparently, what we are experiencing now is a campaign of psychological warfare, trying to show that the regime is still able to, to recover and to take control of the country. In fact, the country is in a chaotic situation.
The country is in a chaotic situation. Will the protesters then be able to take care or take control of the regime is a big question. The United States certainly hoping so. Will that actually happen remains a question at this point of time. I'm going to request our guests to stay on with us. In fact, there's some more updates coming in with all eyes on the war in West Asia, the United States and Israel pounding Iran and Tehran, retaliating across the Gulf as well. But amidst this widening conflict, another fault line can't be ignored. The failed state of Pakistan is now paying the price for playing both sides. It's dived headlong and struck Afghanistan without provocation, and now the blowback is at home. As Islamabad's leadership leaned towards Washington, Trump's war on Iran eliminated the Ayatollah, and the streets of Pakistan have erupted in fury. Hours into the confirmation of Ali Khamenei's death, pro-Islamist regime mobs in Karachi have stormed the US Consulate. The Pakistan Janta has taken great offense to Washington's apparent quote-unquote betrayal, seeing the killing of Khamenei as a war on the Ummah. For these protesters, US didn't eliminate a leader. It struck at the symbolic heart of Muslim unity, and as the Awam in Karachi have attempted to lay siege on the US Consulate, the rogue state Pakistan has turned its guns on its own citizens. Pakistan media reports suggest that scores were injured in the standoff between cops and protesters. Let's quickly take this across to, our panelists as well. Dr. Anand Raghunathan, the inherent contradictions of Pakistan and those fault lines are being split wide open so clearly. Because on the one hand, there's this, atmosphere of diplomatic bonhomie of Asim Munir being wined and dined in Washington, D.C. And look at what the public of Pakistan are actually saying and doing.
Good evening, Madhav, and good evening to my fellow panelists. I'll answer your question in three ways. Number one, you know what that rogue Kissinger said, and he said that to be America's enemy is dangerous, but to be America's friend is downright fatal. I think you can apply the same for Pakistan as well, Madhav. And I think Trump is slowly realizing that. Either that, or he knows about Pakistan exactly, and this entire thing is playing to a script. Now, I'll explain why. Number one, it is a fact, and it is known just to the world, and of course to America much before that, it became public to the world, that Pakistan is a servant state of America. It is going to do exactly what America tells it to do. Under such circumstances, it is hard to believe that everything that has erupted today in Pakistan was either not known to America that it's going to happen, or it's not playing according to exactly the script that is given by America. What do I mean by that? Number one, it doesn't really matter whatever Pakistan does on its soil. Please remember that right now it's been already 5 hours, and if I'm not mistaken, the US Marines have shot and killed 10 Pakistanis. This is Madhav. This is not, it would be unacceptable to any state if a foreign power were to do that, exercise its muscle like this. It's happened already 5 hours. Where are the protests in Pakistan? They know this is playing out. Now, the second point that I want to talk, and here I think I'm looking at through Indian lens, and it's very important that our government comes out and educates our Muslims as to the potential dangers of what is happening in Pakistan and around the world, and should not be replicated out here. Now, Shias, unlike the Catholics, do not have a pope. So there is no one leader that the Shias of the world look up to, leave alone the Indian Shias. And least of all, it is not Khamenei, the tyrant, who was hated by Iranians the most, who in fact, as late as a month ago, under whose supervision, close supervision, 10,000 Iranians were murdered. Innocent Iranians. He is the perpetrator of large-scale terror around the world. He is not, if at all Shias want a leader to look up to, let it be Al-Sistani, who is in Najaf, in Iraq. So it's not Khamenei. Our government must tell the Shias of the world, of India right now.
In fact, we have a Pakistani guest. Before we come into what the government's messaging of India will be, let's bring in what Pakistan's perspective is. And Dr. Atikur Rahman, it appears the inherent contradictions of Pakistan. On one side, you're getting pummeled by Afghanistan on your northern border along the Durand line. On the other hand, in your southern coastal areas of Karachi, the people are taking law into their own hands. They're entering the US Consulate despite the great relations that the regime there in Pakistan is trying to build with the United States. What's really going on, and who's in control of the narrative and of what's happening in Pakistan?
Madhav, the situation is very much clear. Like the war is at our border. I mean, our neighboring countries, when they are involved, definitely we are suffering from the spillover effects of that war. And no doubt the people having some sympathies or some ideological association with Iran, they are reacting, but that is not a big deal. We are taking care of it. We are managing this chaos. And very effectively we are managing. Our government is very much vigilant. We are just taking care of everything, and we are monitoring the entire situation. No doubt people try to record their protest in a different way, but we have very effectively overcome that situation. You can see our media. And on the other hand, you should understand that when your neighbor is in a war, definitely you cannot spare yourself from the spillover effects of that war. And we are suffering from that. But we have the plan and the determination to just make ourselves safe from this crisis.
No, but Atikur Rahman, Dr. Nathan, one second. Dr. Atikur Rahman, but has the Pakistan government condemned the killing of Khamenei?
You can see the media. We have already recorded our condemnation. You can see the media. It is everywhere on the
US Marines.
All right, Dr. Nathan has a question for you.
Yes, sir. Is it true that the US Marines have killed 10 Pakistanis? Can you confirm that?
Still, we do not have any confirmation of it, and we are monitoring the situation. It's really, illogical to comment anything on that. Definitely, a tragic incident has happened, but we are not in a position to pose the responsibility to anyone.
But what kind of a regime are you if you can't even control your crowds from entering a friendly country's consulate? What kind of government is that?
Mother, is very much natural. I have explained it. Our neighboring countries in the war, definitely we cannot spare ourselves from
No, that's in a neighboring country. What about your own country? Within your borders, you can't control the people protesting.
We are controlling it.
How? By allowing them to rampage in consulates.
Enforcement agencies, our religious leaders, our religious leader, they have also approached people. They have sent a very clear message that we respect their sentiments.
No, but why were people allowed to enter a consulate in the first place? What is your police doing? Is it sleeping?
The peace and stability of our country. It is a very, tragic incident. People march. You cannot translate it. We allowed someone. If we allowed, then why we are stopping the people? So it's a natural.
You are allowing
reaction.
them. So you think that this is the way to go to strengthen ties with the United States. All right. Captain Bansal, I want you to comment on this because, you know, the contradictions of Pakistan. I mean, what's happening, of course, the larger picture in the Middle East is certainly the biggest talking point. But what's really inherent in Pakistan, how the left hand doesn't seem to know what the right hand is doing.
See, firstly, we need to be very clear that Pakistan's present regime is certainly not representative. It doesn't represent the aspirations of the people, doesn't represent the people. In Karachi, as Anand rightly brought out, I'm not very sure if the Marines shot it, but the Pakistani newspaper is very clearly saying that at least 9 people killed and 36 others injured when the US Consulate in Karachi was stormed. And this is from a mainstream English newspaper of Pakistan, the News. So there is obviously a turbulence. We have already seen what happened on Afghan border just a few days back when more than 50 Pakistani troops were killed by Taliban in an attack. Pakistan has actually gone inside Afghanistan and targeted. The fact of the matter is that Shiite Islam, as Anand rightly brought out, is not a monolith, firstly. Even Ithnai Sharias or the 12er Shias do not have a common leader. Vilayat-e Faqih, or as the supreme leader, as Khamenei is called, is actually an innovation and no theological text actually justifies that. Grand Ayatollah Sistani undoubtedly is far more clerically and theologically learned person than Khamenei, who was not even a marja when he was appointed as Vilayat-e Faqih. In fact, the constitution had to be amended to make him the supreme leader after the death of Ayatollah Khamenei. So as far as theological conditions are concerned, Khamenei is not a great leader. I have been to Iran twice in last 1 year, and I can tell you he is extremely unpopular as far as common masses in Iran are concerned. Now, having eliminated Khamenei, now the situation is very critical. We need to understand that the President Pezeshkian is actually a moderate, somebody who is not a politician, who is actually a physicist, who has been pitch-forced into politics. Given a chance, he may probably move the regime away from this. But in times of war, people are definitely rallying around the flag. Even those who probably dislike Khamenei are not ready to accept that US and Israel can attack their country and torment it. We also need to understand that as the conflict continues and it aggravates, the Iranian state might unravel. This is a very significant factor and which is quite feasible because in the West you have Kurds who are already extremely powerful. You have Turkish Kurds whose forces have moved into Iraqi Kurdistan. Peshmerga, the force of Iraqi Kurds, is strong. In Syria, the Kurds are on the back foot. So the Kurds may like to create a stronghold in Iran if the Iranian regime is crumbling. That's a feasibility, and that may be in the long-term interest of Israel and the stability of the Middle East, because Kurds are one group which has been denied their homeland for a very, very long period of time, and they are a very secular left-leaning community which has no ill will towards Israel or US or anybody else. So that's one field. And again, on the eastern front, the Baloch who have been fighting the Iranian regime are waiting for an opportunity. Should they get a regime, the province of Sistan, where Baluchistan may try to seek autonomy or independence, as the case may be. So how the Iranian regime spans out, it depends on it. How long does this conflict continues is also very important. But at the same time, there is no doubt that Iran is certainly not Venezuela. And if US feels that they can immediately change regime to bring in their puppet, it may not happen.
All right. Dr. Nathan wants to comment on that. Yes.
No, very quickly, the previous panelist has made some brilliant points. I just want to add something to it, which we must keep in consideration. America and Israel have knowingly gone into this war, understanding that under no circumstances must this be a long drawn out war. Please remember that unlike Russia, that can, prolong the Ukraine war for another decade. It doesn't care for the body bags. Americans are petrified. America has never won a long drawn-out war. Vietnam being one example, Afghanistan being another. Because the moment you have American deaths, that is something that signals to America, let's pull out of it. So they have gone into this knowing very well that they must immediately get the results and put in a regime favorable to them. The more this war prolongs, the more disastrous it would be for America.
Yeah, the more it prolongs, the more disastrous it will be for America, as a point of view that is being expressed. And I want to bring in Dr. Rafael George Bushnik-Chen. The question is this, that if you're looking at the regime unraveling in Iran, a number of points that Captain Bansal made a short while ago, but the bigger question is that why are they, they're of course launching these huge amount of warheads. We're looking at missiles, we're looking at drones, etc. that's being launched. What exactly is the message that they're going to look at? And what is a possible off-ramp once they attack civilian targets, because that's only going to lead to more escalation?
Yes, indeed. What the Iranians are trying to achieve is to shorten the period of the war. We are just in the second day of this campaign, and already Iran is so I would say so deeply damaged that they are crying, for help. And one of the methods they are using is to try to launch missiles towards Israel in order to cause an internal opposition from Israel to continue the war. At the moment, they are not achieving that goal because most of the incoming missiles are being intercepted, including 5 missiles that were just intercepted 5 minutes ago. So apparently, except for minor damage and few casualties that we suffered yesterday and this morning, the Iranians are not achieving any of their goals. So I believe that the main campaign of the Iranians now is against American assets in the Gulf.
Right.
And on this respect, I would like to say that the fact that even this morning the Iranian launched missile towards Saudi Arabia next to Riyadh or next to Jeddah, I'm not sure. This means that Saudi Arabia may join the coalition of Israel and the United States and will also, first of all, enable using its territory for strikes against Iran. And secondly, there is a possibility that the Saudi Arabian will use their SSMs, their long-range missiles, against Iran. So I'm not excluding a kind of, deterioration in a way that Iran will target the oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. And this will be a great change in the, I would say, in the pattern of this war.
Okay.
I hope they won't do that.
All right. There's some more breaking updates coming in at the moment. There's footage of a Palau-flagged oil tanker skylight on fire, following which Iranian strikes that took place near the Straits of Hormuz. That's the latest update coming in. Oil tanker skylight has been attacked, and those are the pictures coming in. In fact, for India and several of the tankers, particularly ones near Oman, we've seen how Indian crew members were evacuated, all 20 crew members in this case as well being pulled out. We're told that 15 of the 20 crew members were in fact of Indian origin. This is very significant, Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava, because these indiscriminate bombings of tankers, this is something that is completely unacceptable, because it's one thing to say that we are targeting US bases. To target any civilian asset such as an oil tanker is an extremely dangerous precedent to set, because this could lead to all sorts of escalations.
So, Madhav, as an Iranian, if you think, which is very desperate, if they can't hit anything, they would like to bring about some kind of economic cardiac arrest. They feel that if Strait of Hormuz is made of not a place of a free flow of oil, where the 20% of oil of the world comes through, they will be able to cause some kind of chaos. They want to bring in this. This is that last-ditch attempt which a person or an adversary who's been fully distracted is trying to do. This is not, I have been telling you, there's no plan, there's no, you always have you have a method in madness too. There's no method here. There's no method of military here. So it is just happening because this last-ditch attempt. They want to create chaos, and creating chaos has been one of their statecraft. They were doing this with the axis of resistance, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi, which actually has started all this. If you go into the background of this, 7th October is one of the marked dates when they attacked the Israel. And what they attacked, it was a civilian population which was just enjoying music and fun, and those youngsters. So that is not the thing which will happen. And this is what they do. And this is what the punishment is coming through. Right. And I agree with one of the speakers who just said that these are all the end game. They have very limited time with Iran now to wage any kind of attack, because the only power they have, the only inventory was supposed to be about 3,000, which must have got depleted. And as you said,
inventory of missiles, you're saying, or drones?
Inventory of missiles. Okay. Drones, of course, they have a large number, but that can all be decimated because the way intelligence is targeting, intelligence is coming, and the kind of air dominance you have, they can hit anything and everything from where you think something is coming out. So they will be decimated. There's no doubt about it. I have no doubt about it.
Let me bring in Captain Balsar. Captain Balsar, the fact that you're seeing Burj Khalifa targeted, you're seeing the Jumeirah Palm, Fairmont Hotel targeted, similar high-value targets that clearly Iran is now looking at, and it is trying to shift the focus to show how it can target, these situations or landmarks that would have huge economic impact. Now, what is really the game over here is a big question, because this would lead to an equally strong response. And we saw what the US has said this morning, that they are going to respond even more aggressively to what they are calling Iran's misadventures.
See, let there be very clear that there's not madness. Iran had very clearly said that in case of an attack, the attack would be on these Gulf states. It had also made it very clear that in case of any conflict, Strait of Hormuz would be closed. And Strait of Hormuz, mind you, is closed since yesterday. No ship has crossed the Strait of Hormuz. There is as a mariner, I can tell you there are hundreds of ships actually loitering outside Strait of Hormuz and inside Strait of Hormuz. The ship that was crossing actually came under fire, and that's where we have seen casualties, which was actually Indian crews as well. So it's an important issue. Iran knows that if Hormuz remains closed, the oil prices will shoot up. Already the crude prices have crossed $72. And if Hormuz remains closed for a longer period, the crude price would touch $100, which is actually counterproductive for the global economy, including the United States. So it will have an impact. Many of the US allies will have a problem. More importantly, most of the Gulf monarchies which support the US are actually non-representative governments. So they are actually autocracies ruling over a population which are again fiercely anti-American. So these attacks may unravel some of them, and that's what is happening. We have seen the attacks in Bahrain and Qatar have been very serious, though of course attacks in UAE and other Gulf monarchies have been relatively milder, but the attacks in Bahrain and Qatar have been quite serious. So there is a possibility. You need to also understand that Bahrain is a Shiite majority country ruled over a Sunni sheikhdom. So there are huge turbulences, huge problems which can emerge. From India's point of view, you have a huge Indian diaspora in all these countries which contribute around $50 billion in remittances every year. United Arab Emirates is India's third largest trading partner. So from our point of view, any turbulence in Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz is a very, very significant factor. So a prolonged war is neither in our interest, nor in US interest, nor probably I can't say about Israel, because for Israel, it doesn't really matter if the war prolongs. But for United States, it's a serious issue, because as the body bags start coming, US will have problem. There's already reports that yesterday the 5th Fleet headquarters were attacked. So there may have been some casualties. I'm not sure if any lives were lost, but there were huge destruction of property in Bahrain. So those are the factors which will affect. And please understand, without putting boots on ground, you may not be able to conquer it. So one has to see how Iranian regime gets weakened. How much attack can be sustained.
We're going to slip into a very quick break. I'm going to request all our panelists to stay on with us, but our continuing coverage on the latest updates and the best and deepest of analysis right here on Times Now.